Mr. Shakos.
Hello.
So what book are you reading at the moment?
Well, when you say reading, because I'm obviously very, very busy, like a lot of teachers are, but this is the book that I sort of have by my bedside, and I can manage a couple of pages every couple of days, really, a bit of a slow reader. It's called the Magdalene Legacy. Do you want to tell you a little bit about it?
Yeah, okay, what's it about?
It's, I think for the public, they'll recognise it as almost linked to the Da Vinci Code, the film The Da Vinci Code. But before the Da Vinci Code, a number of years before, I started reading this book about Leonardo da Vinci and his works, which got me into sort of that, you could call it conspiracy theory, but that almost suggests that there's sort of dark secrets in the world that are being kept away from us. I look at it as just a different viewpoint of history. And the Magdalene Legacy is about who Mary Magdalene was. Obviously, I was brought up to understand that she was a character in the story of Christ, of Jesus Christ, and but she is regarded as a prostitute, you know, someone who was a sinner, who was, you know, who was close to Jesus as he helped her, you know, lead a better life, let's say. But there's another train of thought that suggests that maybe she was actually a preacher. Maybe even developed a relationship with Christ. So it's a little bit controversial, but anything that I read that's controversial, I just see as another viewpoint. And this is very much about the history of Mary Magdalene, who she could have been. She comes across as a very strong person at the time, a preacher, and they talk about whether she could have had a relationship with Jesus. That's obviously the controversial aspects of it, and whether they had a family and what happened to her following the crucifixion.
Do you find that books inspire you?
Inspires a strange, it certainly makes me think. The books that I try to read are the ones that try to give me another view on what we regard as the truth. Because as we're being brought up in life, we're told stories, we're told about things, and we accept it as the truth. And as we get older, we recognise that with history, there's always another opinion, another viewpoint. So even with this book, I see a moment in history which has been tossed in the air, and then I move from my current position, and I look at it from a different position. So it inspires me to think beyond what I've accepted for a number of years.
And what would you say is your all-time favourite book?
There's a few, you know, that's awful.
It's a hard question.
It's a hard question. I think the one that's probably at the time had a change in my mindset was The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama, simply because I think it was written very much for a Western audience, so it was in words of less than 3 syllables, so I could understand it.
Yeah.
But it just got me thinking about how our mind affects our immediate and long-term future, and that we can almost train our mind to be happy, you know, and to have a positive effect on our future. So I think for that moment in time, the position where I was sort of mentally in terms of my age as well, I think it really got me to think very, very positively about who we are as human beings and the fact that we can have an impact on our future.
So those 2 books that you talked about are quite different books. What would you describe would be your favourite genre of books?
I think it comes into the spiritual. I think when you go into a bookshop, these books that I'm picking up are very much from the mind, body and spirit, but they also fall a little bit into the religion as well. So that's the sort of genre of books I seem to go for. I also know that time being, it's difficult because if I do have time, I do like to spend it with my family.
Yeah.
So if I have a moment to read, I want something that's going to make me think. Which sounds daft really, because when you're very busy anyway, but it gets me thinking beyond every day and more holistically about life.
Do you think that reading to children is an important thing?
Absolutely. We have a routine in my house from the moment my children were born, we read stories. I've got 2 girls now, Saskia, who's coming on 6 in July, and Alina's just turned 3. Myself and my wife, we both read to them, but we swap each evening, or sometimes Saskia will say, I want mummy reading tonight, and you know, this, but every night without fail we read stories to our children. And obviously they're very, very lucky, you know, that, you know, touch wood, they've got a comfortable life, and books are an important part of ours and their lives. They've got shelves full of books, and every night we read. And obviously Saskia now is reading to me as well.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, thank you.
I wanted to talk to you about Frank Cottrell Boyce's new book, Cosmic. It's about a boy who has a growth spurt overnight, and then at school everyone thinks he's an adult and one of the teachers.
He also gets his friend, who's a girl, but instead of having a growth spurt, she's very small, and pretends that he's her father, and then the test drive a Ferrari, and by the end of it, I think it's a pile of scrap metal.
So basically the whole story is about a child's life turning completely different, for actually being a child inside an adult's body. That's his point of view.
Thank you for your time.
Miss Daniels.
Hi,
So what book are you reading?
I'm reading Dan Brown, Angels and Demons.
And what's it all about?
Well, basically, it's about a plot to blow up the Vatican City in Rome, and it's all about how Robert Langdon, who's in the Da Vinci Code, and a woman who are trying to stop this from happening. So it's very intense and exciting.
Is that the kind of thing you like when you're reading a book?
Yeah, I mean, I'm reading this because I enjoyed the Da Vinci Code, so I thought it was really good. But I also kind of like crime thrillers and things like that, so something where there's an exciting end. So yeah.
And do you think the reading is important?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think it's a nice way to relax and to kind of escape from like the stresses and strains of every day.
Hey, Mr. Waits.
Hi.
So, what's your favourite book?
I think that's a very difficult question. I like to read. I've got read lots of good books. My favourite book is probably The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. Very factual, very interesting, but also a good story behind it, a good thriller. And that's for maybe not my favourite book, I suppose, The Da Vinci Code. Tough question, but favourite type of book is those kind of thrillery type crime type books. So.
And do you think reading is really important?
I think it's really important, yeah. I think it's a great source of entertainment, first of all, and I also think, obviously, a great source of information. I don't think people's do enough. I try and read every day, even if it's just 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the day. But no, it is extremely important.
Thank you very much.
Okay.